Welcome back. Episode 87.
Nice.
87, Jill.
That's a lot.
13 away from 100.
All right.
Yeah.
That's some quick math.
One day at a time.
He thought about this. He didn't just come up with that off the top of
He
his
did.
head.
He's a number guy.
Yeah, literally, that's very basic. Not to confuse you. Anyway,
I'm still working on it to see if you're right.
I'm
13 fingers.
I need a calculator.
Here, let me get my
episode
calculator.
87 of the Grouch and the Brainstorm, and I'm joined today with Jill,
Hey, guys.
Jalon,
Hello.
first time on the show, and Roger.
Hello, everybody.
And I knew that this was going to be a good episode when I was somewhere around Terrell, Texas this morning, and Air Supply came on the radio.
Amen.
And I knew then, that this is Roger's favorite band.
It's meant to be.
Is that a duo, by the way? Is that considered
Yes.
a duo, or is it like Mike and the Mechanics, where there's a whole bunch of mechanics back there?
No, it's more of a duo.
Okay. So Roger actually was on the show once before. Him and Deb came in, and we had a topic. I don't remember what it was, and I don't remember what episode it was. I'll put it in the show notes so that everyone, can go back and read it. But since then, it's been over a year. Roger has picked up a 1-year chip and worked with a lot of people. And the good thing about Roger is Roger has this booming Trace Atkins voice, that I don't have to worry about him being so soft-spoken that I've got to go in and isolate his vocals. I might have to go in and turn them down a little bit.
Yeah, there's
You
probably gonna
might
be some
have to
clipping.
go in and edit out some of them curse words.
Oh,
It's
it's
like what those
Yeah.
fling out of my filthy mouth.
I leave those in. And it's also a kind of a unique situation because Roger has brought along a sponsee, which is Jalon.
Okay, so we have 3 generations right
We
here.
have a little tree going. It's a
Trifecta.
branch of the tree, the sponsor.
I like it.
And I've actually known Jalon way longer than I've known Roger.
Yeah.
So I've known Jalon probably a decade longer than Roger. Yeah. So we go back to whenever we were children playing on the playground at
Monkey bars.
monkey bars. And,
Jalon, you're that old? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Got that Benjamin Button disease.
Yeah, he goes. He's moving forward in reverse. It's the line out of an Ozzy song, by the way. So Roger, this is obviously going to be your story. We might, we're gonna make it easy on you so where you don't have to be just sitting there telling your story, and we will kind of guide you along a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit different than the regular story though. And that's just because normally we just shut up and that person talks for X amount of time, and when they're finished, we shut it down. But, because we are such a linked group here with the 4 of us here, we may throw in a little, question or two just to see what's going on.
Awesome.
No fact checking, none of that. And being Roger's sponsor, I probably should know his story.
Right.
Mike should be able to tell it.
So I'm going to go back in my notes as we know. I'm the only sponsor that brings a laptop to the meetings and takes notes. Okay, well, you told me. So Roger, why don't you go ahead and just kind of ease into whatever it is you're going to tell us this morning.
Okay. I don't know how far back you want to go or where you want me to start, but I am Roger, and I am an alcoholic, and have a sobriety date of December 24th of 2022. And I am very thankful for that day, and I know there's a lot of other people that are as well. Come from a large family. We can go back that far, I guess. I'm next to the baby out of 7 kids. Had a pretty decent childhood, with the exception of a couple of events. But, outside of that, it was just, I grew up, my parents, because I am next to the baby out of 7 kids, my parents are kind of the age of most other people's grandparents. Mm-hmm. And so, gosh, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I mean, that made it kind of weird for me, when I would be at some friend's house, see their dads, weren't a whole lot older than my oldest brother, and so it was pretty cool to get away from home and see the younger generation of parenting, how they did it, because around my house, we were very old fashioned. and kind of grew up kind of like where we're sitting right now here at Jill's house with. But we
She's
were
good at it.
in the country area, type setting. We had the chickens, we had the pigs and cows.
Well, you happen to be in one of those right now.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was saying. It's kind of like this type of environment, and because our family was so large, that's why we did those things. That was a way we were able to provide for the family, and the raising of the animals and what have you. So, while all my friends were like hitting the town and doing cool stuff, and I'm like, that's weird. Aren't you supposed to be taking care of your farm animals or something? So, but anyway, so yeah, I did not even drink until I was 21 years old.
As should be.
Yeah. And that's what's crazy when I hear about these other stories. People say, well, when I was 12 years old, I'm like, what in the world were you doing? What made you even want to do that? And I was around it all the time because my friends' parents, they all drank and had a good time. And, I just thought that was kind of strange at the time. It was once I was married, us probably around 20 years old, 19 to 20 years old. So when I started drinking, it was a buddy of mine was going to college. I was working for a grocery store, and I worked nights stocking shelves. And so whenever I got home, he was getting ready to go to school, and he lived not far from me, but he was out of class like pretty early. By the time I needed to be going to bed to get ready for the next night. But he would show up, and he would always bring Budweiser. And he would sit there and talk to me and drink, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I got to go to work in a little while. He goes, well, let's drink a few beers. And that's when I got introduced to beer, I guess, and it was the nastiest thing I ever put in my mouth. Hated the taste of beer. But the more I drank it, then I got that feeling.
Is it still the nastiest thing you ever put in your mouth?
I don't put it back in my mouth anymore.
Good answer.
So check that one off the list. Check. And the feeling the next day, the head hurting and everything. And I'm like, why do people do this? That was nasty. But it was that feeling that I got from it while it was fresh on me, not the after effects and everything, that I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I found this thing called Jack Daniels. That was pretty, that is probably, I would say, the turning point of, if you had to put a timeline on when the alcoholism really started, because that feeling came very fast.
Yeah.
But it always ended in me throwing up. A six-pack of beer, I was a very cheap drunk in the very beginning. A six-pack of beer would get me drunk 3 times, possibly 4.
A six-pack.
You sure you
A six-pack.
12?
Yeah. So, no kidding. I mean, but I had no tolerance for alcohol, and it always led to throwing up. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. This is what you're supposed to do when you drink, I guess, But that Jack Daniels really got me, because it was pretty fast on the throw up part. It came pretty rapid, like within 30 minutes of chugging it down. Had gotten in the bar scene pretty heavy, which is never good for a marriage. If the bars were open, we thought we had to be in them,
Where was this at? What town?
In Bossier. I was living in Shreveport, but I mean,
okay.
all the good bars were in Bossier.
You talking about Cowboys?
Well, yeah, I did. Nickel Beer Night.
Golly, those days are over, aren't they?
Do you remember Nickel Beer Night?
I was very, very young, but I did sneak in.
It was replaced by Nickelback Night.
Oh,
I don't get it.
That's okay. That's okay. Roger's a little bit older than the rest of us.
Yeah. So
Air supply reference.
you're right. Thanks. And I saw Kansas the other night, by the way.
Yeah. You're my boy, Blue. Did you say that when they sang Dust in the
didn't.
Wind?
I
I was
didn't.
hoping he would.
That was the very last song they played.
I figured.
They knew that's what everybody, and it was actually the encore song.
It's probably, for some of us that are we're not really separate generations. You're only like 5 years older than me.
Right.
4 years older than me. But that's the only Kansas song I know. Maybe Carry On My Wayward Son.
That one.
That
That's
one.
in there.
But besides those two, Dust in the Wind is probably.
That was the last song.
Carry On My Wayward
Yes.
Son. Oh,
that was the last song.
so they
They
played.
had 8 encores.
I've seen it, man.
They played their top 2 songs last.
Well, I mean, it took a while for them to get back out there, when they're in wheelchairs. Roll them out really.
Keep running over their chords.
But no, actually, there's only really one of the surviving members that was there.
Oh, wow.
And everybody else was not official. So, and he did have to be helped out.
Well, apparently he owns some rights or something to still use the band name.
Yes.
They were on the air supply.
Yeah.
He brought his own air supply.
Oh, that's
Come full
Makes a whole different meaning to air supply, doesn't it, when you get up to a certain age?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've known a couple of fellas in AA that carried their own air supply, carried it around with them. So, but anyway, I'll let you-
Anyway, so yeah, at about this time, we're getting up to that age where we start dealing with high school reunions as we progress. So I guess I'm moving along pretty fast here, but it was one of those things. In school, I was not Mr. Popular or anything like it. And very hardly anybody knew who I was. I was very shy. If you even talked to me, I blushed immediately.
That was pre-mustache.
And it was pre-mustache.
Before the mustache.
It was there. You just couldn't see it. It was still blonde. In my mind, it was there. I wanted a mustache so bad, but now I hate it. But anyway, we get to high school reunions time, and I would, in the years leading up to, you would run into people that maybe you went to school with, and I say maybe because I don't remember hardly anybody. There's a whole lot of my childhood life up into high school and all and what have you that I have pretty much no recollection of. It's like a huge memory gap.
And where'd you go to high school? Bossier High?
Northwood.
Northwood, okay.
Northwood.
Okay.
I've only been to 2 schools in my life. That was North Highlands Elementary and then Northwood Junior Senior High. And that was
North Highland still around?
yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So that was back when junior high and high school was still in one building. Now they have middle schools and then you go to high school. I just didn't have a lot of recollection of it and very little of it. And the only things that I do remember are the things that like me and my best friend used to do together. Back then you could have a shotgun in your truck.
Oh, that's when I was in high school. Well, I mean,
And you didn't hide it behind the seat. It was in the gun rack on your back window.
yeah, made it easier to go hunting after school.
After school, we would left straight from school, and we went squirrel hunting.
okay.
And or if we didn't have, we always had guns in the truck, but I mean we had rod and reels. If it wasn't hunting season. Or
This was
whatever.
back before squirrels went extinct.
That's exactly right. That's
From all the high school hunters.
right. When you pull up, they run up into your truck and go, "Hey, what are y'all doing here?" And you just start blasting them. That was the good old days.
I tell you, Betty, Virginia Park was probably the best place to squirrel hunt.
I never made it there. I bet it was. So anyway, you start going to high school reunions and you've got your name tag on, and even with their name tags on, a lot of them I just didn't remember. And they would come up and go, "Man, you remember back when, you did such and such, or, so-and-so did such and such." And I'm like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. Zero. You were there. You were the center point. You were you started it, and I'm like, sorry, it wasn't me, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it was you." And so I'm like, that's when I started realizing that there was this serious memory gap and there was missing so much of my life that I just didn't know what in the world are these people talking about, It was crazy. It was scary. It was scary as shit, It's like, what did I do? I had a real hard time with that. So it rocked on, and I'm just like, man. So I spent an awful lot of time in my life going, "Who the hell are you? What has happened? Where did your childhood go?" And I've worked since I was 15 years old. Mm-hmm. That was the deal. Daddy would help us get our vehicle and get us started in life, but the rule was you're either going to be a scholar or you're going to freaking work. And so if you did not carry straight A, B type grades, your ass had a job. And so I have been employed since I was 15 years old, you know. And back then, you got your driver's license at 15 years old. You know, you went down, took your driver's test, and you was gone. So,
You know, nowadays, like if you're doing like for the insurance, when you're getting insurance, and what was the earliest you had your driver's license? 15 is not even an option. You have to click 16. But back then, I got my license at 15.
yeah. So, I mean, I worked at Piggly Wiggly.
Well, I mean, back then you had 3 kids by the time you was 15. Yeah,
That's
you had to go to work.
It's so, yeah. I mean, it was, I guess it could happen. But,
Oh, it can happen, huh, Jalon?
Yeah.
all right, I'm gonna leave
I'm
that
just
one
messing
alone.
with Jalon.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
He was
But
18.
you know, so you know, it's all I've ever done all my life is thought, well, you've got to work, you know, because obviously I'm not that scholar. So I mean, even like when I got getting ready to get out of high school, it was like you've got to get married, and because that's what you're supposed to do, because you're not going to go to college. So that's where it started. I mean, literally got married at 18. As soon as I got out of high school, married a high school sweetheart. You know, 2 years later, we had a child, my firstborn, Trent. Trent and I grew up together. I tell everybody, he's my best friend in life. Talked to him on the way over here.
How old's Trent now?
Trent is 36.
And is he the one that's military?
Yes.
Okay.
Both my sons went to military.
Oh, okay.
Trent was Navy. Colton was Marine. Big rivalry there. That was funny because it's like Trent's as tall as that saddle rack, and Colton is as big as his microphone.
Always wondered what that was called.
Yeah.
The saddle rack.
And so,
Someone's going, what the hell?
yeah. So it was that, and there's always that rivalry between the Marines and the Navy. And so,
Especially in the village people. Those guys would, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you?
that was my band back in the day.
Yeah.
No.
He always focused on the Indian dude.
So,
The carpenter. I remember my dad was a carpenter when I was growing up. And I was like, hey, look, Dad, he looks like you.
so I am. By now, y'all are in my head. Y'all are realizing I've done went from alcoholism back to high school again. So that's where I go. My head goes nonstop. So, but anyway, so during my early days of alcoholism, boy, I tell you, I was quite the person whenever I drank. I was not a mean person. I didn't become that person until years on. The Casanova, I guess you would say. So I thought.
This was probably what, 22, 23?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you take that and you mix it with the bar scene.
And that handlebar mustache.
And that handlebar mustache.
Yeah.
It didn't get this long till years on, but I mean, it was like, now it's a challenge.
Have you always been a big guy?
No, I was chubby.
Really?
Yeah. My best friend Todd, he used to joke at me. He goes, "Boy, you got them girl hips." And I was like, "Dude, that was just like the biggest manlyhood crash you could possibly give somebody." And he would laugh. It was funny at the time, but I mean, anyway, that leads to just a lot of not what you want in your life. But at the time, you thought that's exactly what you wanted in your life. So fast forward, it ends up in a divorce. At that point in my life, my alcoholism was really starting to ramp up. Actually, it was in full swing, and it stayed in full swing for quite some years, in excess of 30 years. And when I say in excess of, because I think it probably started the day I took that first drink, and I got that first feel out of it. And to the point where all I could think about was, this tastes nasty as hell, but why do I keep doing it? Because it damn sure wasn't for the taste. So if you were to pick up a dog turd and eat it, you're not going to go, that tastes like shit, I'm going to do that again. You're going to learn your lesson and go, never do that again. Well,
Most people.
Speak for yourself.
Why did everybody look at Jalon just then?
Something in my teeth.
So
Go ahead, Ron.
So anyway, and I didn't realize it then. Hell, I didn't realize it 2 years ago. But now I look back on it and I'm like, holy shit. Because even back then, because I couldn't drink but a beer and a half before I'm throwing up. But I continued to do it, and it was violent throw ups. I mean, it was very violent.
Like projectile?
Yes. And depending on what I drank, beer not so much, but I mean, when I drank the whiskey, it was coming, bro. It was that exorcist shit.
Oh, yeah.
Just like,
Kind of like if you ate a dog turd.
yeah. But you know what? As soon as I was through, I'd go brush my teeth and say, where's the bottle?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the insanity of it. So,
Waking up from hours of detox, shaking and spitting and throwing up, or getting out of some bad situation, and I mean, just like it's like immediately just go straight back. I learned my lesson. I'm going straight back to the bottle.
straight back to it.
Yeah, that's classic.
Because there was comfort in it, I guess, in that I called mine once I got to where I could really drink and without throwing up. I called it the 3-beer buzz. You get those first 3 beers in you, and I would do that in rapid succession, just slam them.
Yeah.
And that feeling that would hit. That's what I chased for the next 10 hours. But the problem was I left it on number 4.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden you're like,
Oh, yes. Yes. And I was thinking, I got to get that feeling back. And never stop, because you're constantly chasing that feeling. And that 3-beer buzz got me for the rest of my life up until almost 2 years ago. And
almost 2 years ago. It's coming up on 2.
dude, yeah, you said Roger got his 1-year chip. And no, Roger's got his 18-month chip. It's fixing to be the 2-year chip.
December. That's insane.
it is.
That is.
It's awesome.
And you could not have convinced me I would be, number one, sitting here doing a podcast, but I mean, that I would even be sober right now 2 years ago. There's no way. I could not do it. And I kept waiting on Mike to fire me. He's like, yep. I was going to be that one. I was convinced. I was going to be the one that was going to be told, don't come back. Don't, because there's no hope for you. And I really thought that was going to be me. And I was out to prove that. And something happened along the way. Is our phones interfering?
No, go ahead. I think mine is, actually. That's why I'm setting mine over there. But every once in a while, y'all don't hear it, but for some reason, me and Jill get this bzzz, and I think it's when the phones are too close to that thing.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Matt, when Matt's in here, we tell him, and he's like, "Oh, okay." It's like, he just accidentally he don't realize it.
Right.
But I've gotten to where it's not in the recordings, but we don't want to.
Yeah. So, in my first marriage, we did that move. We moved away from Shreveport. We moved far, far away to Longview, Texas, and to somebody that grew up in the country, and going out of town was crossing the bridge and coming over into Bossier. That was going out of town for me.
Yeah.
And we just did not travel. I mean, how do you do it with 7 kids? You don't go on vacations. You don't see vacations and traveling and all this. So all this stuff was kind of new to me. So when I moved to Longview, dude, I was in another world. I just thought Bossier was a good drinking town. Man, that freaking Longview's got it going on over there, bro. And with straight up to a divorce going on. And I stayed in Longview. She took the kid. She took Trent and left because everybody was in my way.
Her and Trent come back here?
Actually, they moved over to Henderson. She had a sister that lived in Henderson. She moved over to Henderson. I got a roommate, and this dude was Carrot Top. All right, the comedian Carrot Top. This sucker was him. I'm talking about the flaming red hair. He was crazy just like him, and he drank more than me. So I had to step my game up to run with this dude. And my God, did we ever. So that rocked on about another year.
Did he have the long, shaggy
Dude,
red hair?
Yeah.
Like Rocky Dennis?
The curls in it and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a full face full of freckles and everything, and the women freaking loved him. Oh my God.
And that's where the similarities end.
Yeah, exactly. So I got homesick, and my buddy, my best friend, and y'all hear about this guy a lot. He's a very positive influence in my life right now. And he was back then, and I don't want to say he taught me how to drink, but that's just kind of where it started. It's not on him at all. But anyway, he was coming over to Longview every weekend. Me and him were partying it up. Well, he had this really good looking sister. He's like, hey man, you ought to call my sister up. I mean, what friend does that, So anyway, Suzanne and I ended up getting married. So not only was he my best friend, he was now my brother-in-law. And we had a child, and that's my daughter. And the one, when I told my story the other night, I didn't get to finish telling all that, I kind of felt bad about it whenever I left there, but she and I have never had a relationship. My daughter and I, she's a beautiful lady, an awesome girl. Me and her, we go eat lunch every week now, at least once a week.
And this started when you got sober?
This started about 3 months ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so to the point where if I don't text her and say, what day are we going to eat lunch this week? She'll text me. She goes, when we going to lunch. So, and this is tough because, I mean, she's just like me. She's like, she holds all her feelings in. She doesn't want to bother anybody. And so whenever I first reached out to her, thanks to my counselor, because I sat in his office one evening and he's like, what's one of your biggest regrets in life? And I'm like, my daughter and I don't have a relationship. We don't know how to talk to each other. It's like when we try to talk to each other, we can't even look at each other in the eye. So how do you do this? And it's like, I love you too, and a little slug on the shoulder, and because, I mean, we don't know how to be father-daughter. He goes, well, he said, so why don't you just take her out to lunch? And I'm like, okay, I'll text her this week. He goes, no, you're going to text her right now. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it when I leave. He goes, no, text her right now. So I am so thankful for him because I did. And she immediately responded, I'd love to. So that's kind of where it started. And I think she knew where I needed to get with me and her. But because of the fact that we're both just alike, it's like we can complete each other's sentences and we never say the words. And so it's like I haven't made the full amend where we have that talk because, it's you start out, well, baby, she goes, yeah, I know. And I'm like, damn it, let me say something. And she goes, oh, we're good. And I'm like,
You think it might be awkward for both of you?
yes.
Yeah.
Because she knows what I want to say, and she knows exactly what I'm trying to do, and that's good enough for her, that I've made the effort, But deep down inside of me, it's not good enough for me.
Right.
I want to say the words, and we still haven't got there. But we're getting a little bit closer, So we're able to share a little bit more with each other about our lives, what's going on currently, what's happened in the last year, what's happened in the last decade, so we're getting to where we can share some things that we're both looking at each other like, what? You did what? Had no idea you had a kid, no, just kidding. She does. I do have a grandson through her, and he's also, as a matter of fact, he's fixing to be at our house here in just a little bit, and real cool kid. But I mean, so
How old is he?
He is 8.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
About a little bit older than mine.
Yeah, 8 going on 18. And it's crazy because you look at how I came up, I'm like, where's the guns? Where's the fishing poles? And when I was his age, he's like, where's my laptop?
Yeah. Where's the iPad?
Where's the iPad? I want to throw it out the damn door every time he shows up with it.
They're really good with them.
Oh my God.
Five. I remember my grandson couldn't even talk. And he could grab that iPad and just poop, 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 just start poking
they're
buttons, and all of a
coding.
sudden, here comes.
Yeah, they're like IT specialists.
I complain about it, but anytime I need to know something on my phone, I go, here. I hand it to him. And he goes, oh, that's easy. You do this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay. And no matter what it is, so But in the relationship with my daughter and all, whenever that marriage ended, which didn't take long, 5 years. She took the daughter. I don't blame her, and because I was very heavy in my my addiction and alcoholism, and the addiction part was the pain pills at this point, because I'd had a dirt bike wreck. I broke my ankle pretty good, and so anyway, here comes the pain pills, and you add that on top of a little bit of beer, and man, holy cow, you was off to the races, and it would hang with you. You didn't have to drink near as much beer, So I'm like, cool, okay, I see where this is going. And so, or I thought anyway, when the doctors would no longer prescribe me any more pain pills, I'm like, okay, so I just won't do those anymore. It just took a lot more alcohol at that point to keep me where my new type of high. After that marriage, golly, when you've got so many marriages and so many, the way they were all fouled up, it's just really hard to put true timelines to it and how they all came about. But I immediately went into another marriage and another child, like right out the gate. I think the marriage was because the child was on the way.
Just 3 marriages, 3 children?
3 marriages, 3 children.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And, and that's tough on the children.
Yeah.
And, but I'm like, lucky me, I've got 3 kids, 3 different mamas. And, so I don't have to have them all at one time, because that would be cumbersome to be an alcoholic and still have to have 3 kids around you every day, all day long. So I was still living my life, and everybody else was doing all the responsible shit of like raising kids. And that third marriage was drug fueled, and pretty heavily. I got introduced to some pretty wicked drugs through her, and I knew that prior to us that she had a drug issue, but she was healed. She no longer had the drug issues. I'm like, all right, cool. So we could drink together. And we did. And until we started doing the drugs. And it was pretty clever how they got introduced to us. She miraculously found a bag in a parking lot when we left a bar, sitting right by her door. This is what I was told. She goes, "Oh, look what I just found on the ground. Somebody's little coin purse." And she opened it up, and it was full of freaking drugs.
Yeah, that was a miracle.
It was. It was like dropped from heaven.
Well, probably not heaven.
Not heaven. You got
what
shot
Jesus
straight
did.
up through hell.
or a cartel plane flying over and fell out the door.
Miraculously, it was on her side of the vehicle and right by the door, and it was full of
Just various drugs.
a lot of meth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, what is that shit? And she told me, and she goes, it's badass. I'm like, okay. So we get home, and she does a little bit. So I'm watching her bounce around the house and everything.
Well,
and I'm
naturally, when you find a bag full of pills by your car, you gotta try
You got to
it.
try it.
You're not going to be able to figure out who the owner is.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm like, that's kind of odd. Find drugs in the middle of a parking lot, and you're going to go home and try them not knowing what it is.
For sure.
Go back to that dog turd that we were talking
Yeah.
about. We got to figure out whose dog this is.
Yeah. And
That's not dog.
this is a part of my life that a lot of people don't know. This is where I meet Jill. Not because of the drugs.
It was my bag.
It was Jill's
Let's
bag.
hope it's not the not the drugs and not the dog turd.
No. My wife ended up working for Jill's dad.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Right down here, right down the driveway.
Yep.
Before it was that pretty.
When it was just a barn.
It was just a barn. Yeah, it was crazy. But so, and I still didn't know who Jill was, but lo and behold, that's how,
And little did he know what was going on in my life.
no idea. No idea.
Same.
Yeah. Even then, I didn't know this house even existed back here. But anyway, that's that marriage there was it lasted longer than I thought. When I told my story the other night, it was very short lived. It was very short lived, but it was long enough to have a child. It was off again, on again. But when I say off again, it was like 12 hours off, maybe. It was like, okay, that's enough of that shit. Let's get back together. So, it was just that. It was volatile. It was. When I look back on it, it was not the best environment, especially to have a child in. So there come a point where I was tired of it because it led to a lot of cocaine. It's just everything, it's just stuff you don't even want to pronounce and say out loud because, it's embarrassing when you look back on it and how deep it got. The electricity was being cut off, and when SWEPCO would leave, you go out there and you cut the deal off there, flip the meter back around to the point that, within the next month and a half, they done jerked your freaking meter, So instead of going paying the bill, you move. You got to go somewhere else and then put the electricity in somebody else's name. My son was not even a year old, and he had electricity in his name. And, that's the kind of shit you do, you just, who can we do next, But there come a point where I was just standing there looking at my son laying in his bed, and I'm like, this has got to end, and it's got to end right now. So I walk in the bedroom and I tell my wife, I'm like, okay, this is it. No more drugs. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, no more drugs. No more drugs allowed in the house. Never, ever again. I am through. Well, I didn't say anything about drinking. So the next day I woke up to her kneeling down beside the bed, snorting up a line of coke. And I just opened my eyes and that was my sight. And all I did was said, did you not hear what I said yesterday? And she goes, yeah, I can't do it. So I got up, got dressed for the day, went and got my son ready, packed him a bag, packed me a bag, and she's watching us the whole time. Never said a word. And we left. Called my mom, said, Mom, we need somewhere to stay. She said, come on. So anyway, thank God for my mom. My mom and dad, they helped me through every one of these marriages. And I skipped that part, but I was like a yo-yo. I'd go back home to mom and dad, strike back out on my own again, go back. It was back and forth. And, one day I told my dad, I said, man, I apologize for bouncing in and out like this. Obviously there's something wrong with me. I just can't quite get my life together. And he's like, well, son, he's like, if you ever in a point in your life where you can't go anywhere, you can always come home. We'll never turn our back on you. And he goes, yeah, you do have some issues going on in your life, There was a couple of legal problems he had to bail me out of. Never been to jail in my life. Never seen the inside of a jail cell. Never made it that far because of my dad. What it cost him, I always thought my dad just knew people.
I do know what it cost.
Yeah.
We'll cover that later.
Yeah. I just thought my dad knew people, but no, Dad would just hit the bank and he would pay the people to keep me from going in there. And that was one of my resentments in life, Mike. I remember, it's my parents when I did my step 4, it's like they were enablers. Poor me. I couldn't see that, dude, you're screwing up so bad. Quit making your life so shitty, But instead, I had resentment towards my parents for being enablers. They could have put their foot down. They didn't have to do this to me or for me. But that's the love of a parent, as I've learned in my older years, my latter years. We'll go to the ends of the earth for our kids. We'll stomp our foot and say, you can't be doing this. But when they turn around, you go, here, let me do this to keep them from hurting, And that's created problems in my current marriage, still today. Not so much today. I've kind of slowly but surely made that turn. When you hear a child saying, such and such happened, my car broke down or whatever, I would be very fast. Go, here, let's just go get it fixed. Let me pay for it. Don't worry about paying me back. This is what we do as parents, because that's what my parents did, and so I would get in trouble of, don't you realize what you're doing? Because now, instead of when they have an issue, instead of going, I've got an issue, I need to figure this out. First thing they do is, I've got an issue, let me call Dad. He'll take care of this, make it go away. I guess that's just something I inherited from my parents. Now I know why they did it. You never want to see your child suffer. But we create a lot of suffering by doing that, because if they suffer just a little bit and deal with the situation on their own, they learn a lesson. But when we continue to do what we have a tendency to want to do, there's no lesson there. The only lesson is, call Dad. He'll take care of this. And it's a lesson that's gone down through my siblings as well, Oh, Roger's the one that can take care of this, But I didn't fix shit. It was just a financial cover-up is all it was. And but because of that, it's created some turmoil in my household. And it's turmoil that I'm not wanting to deal with, something that I'm not okay with having to listen to. So I can either tell everybody to lie and hide the fact that I just helped you, or I can do the right thing and maybe give you a little guidance on maybe what you need to do to fix your shit, but no longer think I have to inject myself into your problems and be the fixer, because I can't even operate my own freaking life, and the whole time. And there again, there's so much wisdom and knowledge learned on the ability to be able to look back at your life and where you've come from and see what you've done, that, I knew I could not even hold my own damn life together. So, and since I couldn't do mine, maybe I could help you do yours, give me a sense of accomplishment. I was able to help you do whatever, but the whole time I'm sitting here suffering like hell, but didn't think so then. I thought I was the freaking hero, and enjoyed that. Look at me, look what I did. Look how I helped them out, But I can't even help my own self out, Boy, I done skipped over a whole nother relationship and went straight into my current marriage. So anyway, when Suzanne and I got divorced, oh no, wait, we've already been past that. So when Stacy and I got divorced, and I left that house with my child, my mom helped me raise, got back out on my own, raising a kid on my own as an alcoholic, a very young child. Then my oldest son's mom called me. They done moved off to Atlanta, Georgia. She'd remarried and moved to Atlanta. And she called and says, your son is saying he wants to come back to Shreveport. And I'm like, well, hell yeah. He didn't want to be in Atlanta. You made him go there. So he calls me and says, will you come get me? And I'm like, hell yeah. Captain Hero, save a motherfucker that can't even save himself. Here I go.
Mm-hmm.
Off to Atlanta, GA.
Off to Atlanta, GA, baby. I'm pulling a trailer, and I told him. I called him when I left, and I'm like, I will be there at exactly such and such time. I said, I do not want to go in your mama's house and help you get your stuff. You have your shit in the driveway. And when I pulled up, he did. I'm talking about his bed, his dresser, all his clothes, everything was boxed up, bagged up, and everything. I pulled up, we loaded up, tied down. He told his mom bye. He got in the truck. I was there a grand total of 20 minutes, and we were headed back to Shreveport.
Wow.
Drove it nonstop both ways.
Mm-hmm.
If I ever have to move, I'm going to get you to help me.
I hate
Just
moving.
do it that way.
Yeah, because that's the only way to do it. You get ready, we'll show up. And so here I was, a still very active and alcoholic, trying to raise two kids on my own. So I figured the best way to do this is to make them my friends. I can't do the father role because I suck at that. I can't do it. So I'm raising two boys as an alcoholic, and as they got older, I was the cool dad where all the kids wanted to come hang out at our place. Of course, I wasn't there, but just part of the night. I'd get them started with having a good time and everything and say, okay, here's the rules. See y'all later. I'm hitting the bar. I'll be back later. And show up drunk as yeesh. And then continue on partying with the kids the rest of the night. So, it's thank God I never had a mad parent come at me or anything, because, I look back on it and that was not a good environment because here I am teaching kids how to drink, and it got where whenever he was in high school, I would like make sure they had beer before I left and no ways to leave. So if they showed up and they had a car, I took their keys with them whenever I left. And so they had no way to leave. And they had to stay there till I got back. And of course, when you get back, of course, you got a bunch of drunk kids sitting around having a good time. What do? You just get right up in the middle of it with them. You play beer pong with them. You just do whatever it is they want to do.
Never done that.
And so, man, those son of bitches are good too. They was serious about their beer pong.
Well, nowadays, I think it's an Olympic sport.
I think if not, it should be. They should use spring water instead of beer or something.
Break dancing.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. The break dancing?
Yeah, Jill kept up with it and kept me in the loop. She would send me updates daily on who won the gold or whatever color it was.
Yeah.
Right. And, in a competition like that, unfortunately, the biggest highlight in the breakdancing was the person that had scored 0.
Yeah. Yeah. That has now ruined the sport. Like it's no longer the Olympics.
Yeah.
Jill acknowledges it is a sport.
That green jumpsuit.
Hey, you go break dance.
I
And
really,
tell me if you don't sweat.
I really can break dance. So that's why I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, breaking 1 maybe, breaking 2 no way. These guys aren't even, they should have pulled some of these cats out of the 80s, put them on the breakdancing team, sent them to Thailand or wherever the Olympics were.
The 80s was, 40 years ago?
And
so
they could probably still out breakdance.
yeah, well, for sure.
Some of these professional So Roger, I'm gonna skip ahead just a minute because I want a couple of things I want to address. Whenever you did finally decide this was enough,
Yes.
what made you decide this is enough? I want to get sober.
The old proverbial sick and tired of being sick and tired. But I don't, and I say that now, but I mean, I don't think I was ready when I got ready. I thought I was ready. But I look back on it because I had so many people on my back. And the fact that my best friend in life that grew up with me, which was my oldest son, no longer had anything to do with me, but I was still too numb to the fact that it was because of my alcoholism. I just thought, he finally grew up and now he's got his own child and he no longer has time for me. But I didn't realize how the progression of my alcoholism was going. And so anyway, I'm like, okay. And my marriage was falling apart.
Yeah.
And not because of a bad marriage, but there again, because of the alcoholism. It was strictly driven by that. As you know, there were some other events going on there as well that was really driving it. And I'm like, I've got to get my shit together. I got to do something. And I needed some time alone. And so I'm like, I know what I'll do. I'll go to rehab. So that was the beginning of it. And that's when I started thinking, well, okay, I do need to shut this drinking down, at least throttle it back, get it under control.
General first consensus of a lot of folks is, I just need to, the problem is if you have alcoholism, it's beyond that. It's beyond that control.
It's very beyond. And I didn't
try for years to throttle back.
Yeah. I didn't realize that you could not throttle back.
So did you go to rehab?
I went to rehab. I went to CADA. And so anyway, I signed up for I think it's a 28-day program they do.
Yeah.
I made 17 days.
You graduated? With honors?
I did. I did the accelerated program.
Yeah.
Sure. Did you leave AMA?
Everybody they give you this packet of stuff that you got to work on when you go to these meetings with your counselors and the little small groups, where you filled it out as you talked about it. Well, I took my packet back to my room in our free times and I carried on filling everything out. And hell, I was done in almost a week. I'd filled the whole packet out. Mm-hmm. They were on page 5. I'm like, what the hell? What is wrong with y'all? It's not that hard. Just fill it out, you know. I went and turned it in. They're no, you hold on to this and continue to bring it to the classes.
Just wait on that grade.
Yeah. I'm like, go ahead and grade mine.
Like,
so you
I'm
can tell
done. I'm cured. Time to go.
Yeah. You can tell everybody in class about how slow they are. It's not that hard. I don't know what y'all's problem is. So anyway, continue to go to the little meetings daily and everything. And there were people from AA, from the Koala Club that came and visited, and other groups as well, that would come in and visit and talk and everything. I remember a few of them. So I thought I was taking it serious, and I thought I was cured. And there was a bunch of clowns in there, as you're going to have in rehab facilities.
Yeah.
People that have to be there. You know, there was me and maybe one other person that electively were there. Everybody else had to be there, so it was a bunch of clowns and everything. And I don't have a lot of time for that in my life. I take myself too serious. I take life too serious. Still, to this day, I try to have a good time, and I think I succeed from time to time. But I don't know. I guess in my older age, I look back at the fact that I don't have near as much time left in my life that I've got behind me now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
life.
I've got to make this count.
Life is like a roll of toilet paper. There towards the end, it starts to go faster and faster until it's gone.
Yeah. So I did the accelerated program. I got on out of there. I changed a few things in my life, but not the important things. But I did go to AA. And that's one of the things my counselor said. Please go to AA. But I also got a counselor that I started seeing after that as soon as I left there as well, because I knew that there was something still wrong in my life. And we were able to locate it, as you and I have talked about, Mike, and everything started making sense as to why the memory gaps and everything. But the problem was I started doing this treatment for it. It's called EMDR. And what it does, it pulls up, oh, yes, the vibrating in the hands and everything. Tough.
It is tough.
It's very tough. And my counselor told me this is very tough. He said, what you're fixing to go through, we're fixing to open your mind up is what we're going to do. And
Clarice.
there's going to be a lot of things that are going to surface, especially knowing that you don't remember anything. And we're going to get to the bottom of this. And it's not going to be pretty. He said, here's the problem. If you're an alcoholic and you go through this treatment, it only intensifies your drinking. I was warned.
Yeah.
You know, but I was that dead set on knowing who the hell am I? What is this gap? So we proceeded with the treatment weekly, once a week. And he was not lying. Dude, it was tough. And, you know, when I mentioned EMDR to anybody else, a lot of people's like, what's that, you know? And as soon as I said it, I looked across at Jill, and she's shaking her head, and she's doing some of the movements. So I'm like, yeah, that is tough. I had to quit. It because it did intensify. It got to the point where I knew I was going to his office to do another treatment, so I drank before I got there.
Yep.
Because I knew what I was fixing to endure was gut-wrenching. We wrapped that up, and he, thank God, is a huge advocate for AA. Huge. He said, you need to continue to see me, but we're going to stop EMDR. We've got to stop this. He said, because right now you've got another problem that we need to address, and that's your drinking.
Yeah.
You're in bad shape. And I'm like, okay. So I tried digging deep into AA, which to me was just showing up. That was a huge step for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
And to the point where, in order to convince myself to do it, I had to drink before I got there.
Man, a lot of people.
If I did not drink, I would not show up. Mm-hmm. There were times I pulled up in the parking lot and drank and did not go in. But my wife could see that I was at the Koala Club. She could see on my location. She wanted to make sure I was at the Koala Club. So I couldn't even go in. You know where Craig parks back there by the building?
Yeah.
That's where I started parking.
Yeah.
I would back in all the way in beside the building.
That's probably where Craig got the idea too.
He's like, I got to stop anybody else from parking in beside the building because I thought I was hidden. Nobody could see me.
Yeah, no.
And as I would sit in the truck where I could face the parking lot, I could tell as people were walking in, they were steady looking back at me, going, "Who's that?" You know, "Oh, well, maybe he'll be in here in a minute, you know." And as soon as everybody got out of sight, you know, turned it up. Well, it got to where I could go in there, you know, and whenever I was like, I'm going to give it a full week. I'm going to go in there for a solid week and let me see what goes on. And in that week, I was called on to read How It Works 5 times.
Yeah, once they find somebody that's willing to read it, man, they're going back.
Everybody's like, no thanks, I'll take the preamble.
Okay. And so as I'm sitting in this meeting and deciding to give it the true go ahead, I was sitting there one day and somebody walks by with an index card and drops it in my lap. And I pick it up. It's got this guy's name and phone number on it. I'm like, okay, what's this about? You know, so not knowing what to do or say, after he went and sat back down, I just texted thanks. I didn't know what to do with this. And so after the meeting, I'm like, hey, thanks. And he's like, hey, if you need me, call me. I said, okay. So I left. So I'm like, it was really driving me crazy, but he knew I needed him, but I was too proud to call him, you know, because I didn't think I needed anybody yet. So after a few days, he was in the bathroom and I walked in there and, you know, so I'm like, so are you like my sponsor? Is that what this means? He goes, do you want me to be? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. He goes, okay. I said, so I'm supposed to call you every day? You know, how's this work? You just call me if you need me. I was like, okay. So I had this little issue. I couldn't call him unless I'd been drinking. You know, the same thing with getting into the rooms of AA. And he's like, hey, I want to help you, but I can't when you've been drinking. Call me tomorrow. And he would hang up. I'm like, wow, that jerk. So time rocked on, and we started working the steps. And I continued I'd get 30 days. I'd go back out. Sometimes it wouldn't make 30 days. I'd drink again, and I'd have to get another desire chip. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I said, I can't do it. He goes, yeah, you can. I said, no, we've tried everything. He said, no, we haven't. He says, one thing you haven't done yet, you haven't given me 90 meetings in 90 days. And just don't drink for 90 days. Just give me 90 days. And I'm like, look, dude, I'm sucking at this. He says, how often did you drink when you came here? I said, every freaking day for the last over 30 years. He said, okay. And so at that point, it was like every 30 days I was having to get another desire chip. So he goes, we got you down to 12 times a year. Bear with me. We can do this.
Yeah.
So he said, but just give me 90 meetings in 90 days and just don't drink for 90 days, one day at a time. And we did it. And here I am today. It has not been a solid, you know, I guess, by the book sobriety. I mean, I've stayed in my head a lot. And that is, Jill, you and I were talking about this last weekend, just sitting out here. You were on the side by side and I was cutting up the tree. And about how sometimes I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? What are you thinking? And he's like, yeah, it takes a while to find yourself. And I'm like, yeah, but I think I'm almost, and how many years did you say? How long did it take you? It's like years.
Like 5, 6.
That scared the shit out of me when you said
I'm
that.
sorry. Well, yeah, I was a little out there.
I mean, I'm like, I'm coming up on 2 years. I think I'm there, but and in my mind, you're going, dude, you're nowhere near there. You're nowhere near it.
Hey, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. This could be today for you.
Yes. And so it's through one thing and one thing only, and that's through God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, had Mike not have taught me how to truly connect with God again. Because I was raised in the church. I knew all about God. I prayed all the time. And that's when I learned about these things called foxhole prayers. My life was full of them. And the selfish prayers. And Mike taught me how to pray without being selfish. And the hardest thing to do was to learn to seek God's will in everything that I do. Even when it does not turn out like I want it, understand that's an answered prayer, because that's God's will, not mine. And that is in my daily prayers, that if my day starts going off track, especially, I have to step back and check myself. Hey, what are you wanting so bad that you are now no longer seeking God's will? And it doesn't take long. It takes just a few seconds to realize, dude, you're in your head, you're in your way, get out of the way, let God drive. He's got this. That's a tough decision, but once you do it and you learn the benefits from it, you start gaining the benefits from God's will, even though it's not exactly what you want. It's not that bad. It's 10 times better when you give it a minute to soak in and go, I'm glad it didn't go my way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a lot of times we have to look back and see where the situation that we really thought we wanted it to turn out this way, and we probably wanted it with everything we had, right? Just deep down inside, it didn't turn out that way, and the way things are today would not be that way had that situation not turned out the way it did. And God's will is going to happen whether we want it to or not. That's just how it is. Like if we think about it,
yes,
God's will is going to happen.
Yeah.
Period. We have to adapt to that.
yes,
And and for those people out there who may not have the same belief system as the people in the room here, that's understandable too. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and we still have to adapt.
Yeah.
No matter how
And
you look at
accept.
it, right?
Just
so
is what it is.
and growth is going to happen for the rest of your recovery, I hope. I haven't met anybody in the rooms with any amount of time that comes in the room, Raj, and they sit down and they go, all right, I got it figured out.
No.
I've seen people with 25 years say at a meeting one time, hey, I've been here long enough. I honestly think I can try wine. I'm going to go back. And within a year, they gave up 25 years of recovery, and they're back at AA going, I just didn't like that life out there.
One of the biggest growths in the AA program for me, and which I thought was going to be absolutely insane. Whenever you told me, I called Mike one day and I said, Mike, I'm about to lose my mind. I think I was 11 months. I wasn't even a year sober yet. And I was so excited about working up towards that 1 year coin. I said, Mike, I just don't know what's going on with me. I've got this strange, uneasy feeling. And Mike's like, I know exactly what's wrong with you. I'm like, there's no way you know what's wrong with me. But he says, this is what I want you to do tonight when you're at AA. And at the end of the meeting, and they say, if there's anybody willing to sponsor, please raise your hand. He said, I want you to raise your hand. I'm like, oh, you lost your mind. He says, no, but you're going to if you don't. So I did. And whenever I started sponsoring, I had a couple of failures. And it was that, we've heard it 100 times, you call your sponsor going, oh my God, he's not going to make it, and he did not make it. He's gone. He won't return my calls. He won't answer my phone calls. He goes, are you still sober? And yes, I am. He said, okay, then it's working. And then I get a hold of one like Duke. I love this dude. Duke is amazing. He made life so easy. We went through the 12 steps without a hiccup, and he went through some turmoil in his life that your average person would have said, screw this shit, I'm going back out. And he didn't. I with work, I was like, dude, please don't do this. Just let's work on this, and he's still in the rooms today. He is going through some pretty hard stuff, and he's still got nothing but positive words to say. And working with sponsees has been the best thing in my life. It would have been the worst thing in my life if I had never done that. Jalon shows up the other night. We're going to get started on step 8. And we did work in some of the book, but just in general chit chat. We sat there and spoke for over 2 hours, just visiting, just he and I, and never started on step 8. But I think that's something he and I both needed. I know I needed it because just being able to work with these guys, it does so much for me that as a sponsee, you have no idea how much you're doing for your sponsor by being there.
Oh yeah,
Unity.
they definitely keep you sober.
That door just opened.
Yeah, that's a long story.
Does it happen?
Sometimes, yeah. Generally, it's when the dishes start flying out that we.
I'm going to tell you, I've never jumped out of a second story window, but I will today when the first dish comes out of that cabinet.
There's a priest right down the road. We have to run and grab him and come back. Every once in a while, we meet a rabbi halfway, and it turns into a really bad joke. But anyway, Roger, we appreciate you coming by the show today. Man.
Yes, so
Jalen,
much.
An hour's never enough time.
I know.
And I'm thankful for Jalon to be here.
Jill
happy
told
to be
me.
here, dude.
Jill told me earlier in the week that she had to go to a yogurt festival today.
Yoga.
Yoga.
Yogurt.
I knew it was something. I knew it was something healthy. I just wasn't okay. I was wondering, like, who are they buying their yogurt from?
Well, it doesn't sound as fun. might
Do
I
they
say.
make their own?
I mean, like, yeah, yoga.
Yoga. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, man, I could go to
Sounds equally exciting.
go to a bacon fest. You know.
For sure.
If you were to combine the two.
But anyway, and I was running late as well. So guys, we appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go, though, I do want to run through. I have failed to keep the listeners informed of our countries, and apparently, I thought these things came in order. So, I'm gonna list the countries that we're available in, but just real quick: the United Kingdom, Ireland, Canada, Taiwan, Germany, Saint Lucia, Kenya, Denmark, Bulgaria, Lesotho, the Philippines, Russia, Singapore, Australia, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Colombia, the Netherlands, Mexico, India, El Salvador, Switzerland, New Zealand, and Italy.
There's a lot more countries.
I know, and I thought they were in order, so I've just been reading whatever popped up.
I didn't know there was that many cities.
Yeah, well, those are countries, and they each have cities in them. So that many people listen. That's someone has listened to our shows in all of those. Now it might be one like person who travels all over the world, you know.
Awesome. that would be good to know.
And
It's Terry.
and as of right now, 7,002 people have listened. I mean, 7,002 times we've been listened to. Period. Which for us is a lot. You know,
Sure.
We're going on 2 years in May, and we have 153 followers now. So we were up from 149 about 4 weeks ago. So we average about one new follower a week. And of course, after they hear Rogers telling a story, liable to be in.
It's going to tank.
Yeah, we're allowed to have 3.5 million listeners.
It's going viral.
Yeah, something's going to happen with this thing, and I'm going to end up having to having web
I don't
servers
know.
down in all these countries, Mike.
Well, I can
break
honestly
the internet.
say an hour's not enough time.
Well,
No.
When I first told my story, I'm like, what am I going to talk about for an hour?
Right?
And I had to cut myself down there. I will say, I do know this. I spent too much time drunk on this one.
That's okay.
Because Randy T told me, he goes, did your sponsor tell you anything about how to do this? I was like, no. He just said, go do it, you know. And he's like, listen, do not stay drunk too long. 20 minutes.
Here's what I always do, right? I give it 30 minutes, okay? Now this is after a period of sobriety, so it's going to change the longer you stay sober.
Right.
I give it 30 minutes for history and drinking. So like my family history and all of that stuff and the drinking career, and then 30 minutes for recovery. So, but someone who's been sober 2 years may have 40 minutes of drinking and history and 20 minutes of recovery, or 45 and 15. You know, the point is, you know, you came and told your story. That's the point.
Right.
You are going to hone that thing in so that when you go on the speaker circuit, you know, you got people from, you know, Nashville scouting you out, going, man, this is the next Trace Atkins right here.
Get him
Yeah.
some purple hair, 700 Club.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, we got to roll. Appreciate you coming by.
Thanks.
We have been in Bossier City, Louisiana, here at Rule 62 Studios, and we are always the Grouch and the Brainstorm.
Everybody